Chapter 8 is about organizational culture, structure, and design. This chapter will focus on organizational cultures and structures and how they should be aligned to coordinate employees' pursuit of the organization's goals, vision, and strategies. We will discuss 3 types of organizations and their 7 basic elements, as well as review the 7 types of organizational structures and consider the 5 factors that should be considered when designing the structure of an organization. Our discussion begins with aligning strategy, culture, and structure and defining what is meant by organizational structure and culture. Organizing is the second function of management in the management process. Remember, there are 4. Organizing is the second one. It begins with the study of organizational culture, which is defined as the set of shared, taken for granted implicit assumptions that a group holds and that determines how it perceives, thinks about, and reacts to its various environments. It is concerned with who reports to whom and who specializes in what work. Organizing also takes into consideration the cultural structure which managers must determine when implementing a particular strategy. So culture is different within each organization. The culture at Quicken Loans is very different from the culture at General Motors. Think about the culture in your classes. They differ from one to the other, or the culture from one school campus to another. So what drives an organizational culture? There are a few things. Founders' values, the industry and business environment, the national culture, the organization's vision strategy, and behavior of leaders. The culture is the social glue that binds members of the organization together. Just as a human being has a personality that can be fun-loving, warm, uptight, competitive, or whatever, so can an organization. They have a personality, and this is its culture. The culture helps employees understand why the organization does what it does and how it intends to accomplish its long-term goals. So an organization's culture is personality. This graph shows how culture helps and structure helps mutually influence each other. So this graph helps to show how both culture and structure mutually influence each other. The drivers of culture, we have what are they? Which influences the organizational culture, which is the structure and the internal processes that are created because of the organizational culture. Then we have the social and group processes and the attitudes and work behaviors, and then finally the overall performance. And we'll talk a little bit about some of these in the lecture. So an organizational culture happens at 3 layers that you see here, and cultures can be classified into 4 types, which we will look at. The first layer is observable artifacts, the physical manifestations of a culture. At the most visible level, organizational culture is expressed in observable artifacts, the physical manifestations such as manner, of dress, awards, myths, and stories about the company. What are the rituals and ceremonies, the decorations, as well as visible behavior exhibited by managers and employees? Think about the culture at the place you work at. What is the dress code like? Are there any rituals that you perform before the start of the day or at the end of the day? The second level is in espoused values, explicitly stated values and norms. These are preferred by an organization as may be put forth by the firm's founder or top managers. So this level 3 is basic assumptions, the core values of the organization. Basic assumptions which are not observable represent the core values of an organization's culture, those that are taken for granted and, as a result, are difficult to change. This means that if you don't have any core values at the start or as time goes by, or as time went on, there was a need to implement them. So at the beginning, you didn't have core values, but as time went on, you saw a need to implement them. This can be difficult because the culture that defines your company is already set without those formal policies and procedures. So the Competing Values Framework, CVF, provides a practical way for managers to understand, measure, and change organizational culture. The CVF classifies organizational cultures into 4 types: clan, adhocracy, market, and hierarchy. The first that we will learn about is clan. So in discussing these 4 types of organizational culture, I will be referring to this framework that you see here and how each of those 4 types vary along the 2 dimensions on the horizontal and vertical dimension, which is external focus and integration and external focus and differentiation. The first, the horizontal dimension, inward or outward. This dimension expresses the extent to which an organization focuses its attention and efforts inward on internal dynamics and employees, the external focus and integration, versus outward toward its external environment and its customers and shareholders, which is on the external focus and differentiation. The vertical dimension, flexibility or stability, in this dimension expresses the extent to which an organization prefers flexibility and discretion versus stability and control. Combining these 2 dimensions creates 4 types of organizational culture based on different core values that we already identified: clan, adhocracy, market, and hierarchy. Our first type is clan, shown in the upper left quadrant. This culture is like a family type organization. It encourages collaboration among employees, striving to encourage cohesiveness through consensus and job satisfaction and to increase commitment through employee involvement. Clan organizations devote considerable resources to hiring and developing their employees, and they view customers as partners. An example of this is Chick-fil-A. Second is adhocracy culture. This type of culture attempts to create innovative products by being adaptable, creative, and quick to respond to changes in the marketplace. Employees are encouraged to take risks and experiment with new ways of getting things done. And this type of culture is well suited for startup companies, those in industries undergoing constant change, and those in mature industries that are in need of innovation to enhance growth. An example of this is Google. The third culture is market culture. Because market cultures are focused on the external environment and driven by competition and a strong desire to deliver results, customers' productivity and profits take precedence over employee development and satisfaction. Employees are expected to work hard, react fast, and deliver quality work on time, and those who deliver results are rewarded. An example of this is Uber. Finally, we have the hierarchy culture. Companies with this kind of culture are apt to have a more formalized, structured work environment aimed at achieving effectiveness through a variety of control mechanisms that measure efficiency, timelessness, and reliability in the creation and delivery of products. An example of this type of company is Amazon. They are especially to manage its vast shipping processes. So how do we learn about culture? When you start a new job, how do you learn or understand what the culture of this new place is, your new place of employment? It is through symbols, stories, heroes, rituals, and other organizational socializations that we begin to learn the culture of this new place of employment. Symbols, it could be an object, an act, a quality, or an event that conveys meaning to others. For Nike, it's the swoosh. For Best Buy, it's their colors. Stories, a narrative based on the true events that are constantly repeated or sometimes embellished upon to emphasize a particular value. For example, how a company was started. What are the stories behind that? Heroes, a person whose accomplishments embody the values of the organization. This could be the founder of the company. The hero for Apple, for some, is the late Steve Jobs. Rites or rituals. These are activities and ceremonies that celebrate important occasions and accomplishments. This could be rewards, end-of-the-year trips, or a monthly ritual. And finally, we have organizational socialization. This is the process by which people learn the values, norms, and required behaviors of an organization. That you get to know your coworkers and how things are done until, through socialization until you finally become part of the team and understand your role and what you need to do to contribute to the company's values and norms. Many people believe culture powerfully shapes an organization's long-term success by enhancing its competitive advantage. A team of researchers tested this hypothesis with a meta-analysis and of more than 38,000 organizational units, either organizations as a whole or departments in different organizations, and 616,000 individuals. The results reveal that an organization's culture matters, and employees have a more positive attitude when working in an organization with clan cultures. Remember, clan cultures is about the customer is part of the family, the Chick-fil-A culture. Clan and market cultures are more likely to deliver higher customer satisfaction and market share. Operational outcomes, quality, and innovation are more strongly related to clan, headocracy, and market cultures than to hierarchical ones. And an organization's financial performance is not strongly related to the organizational culture. So companies with market, and finally, one of the results that was revealed is companies with market cultures tend to have more positive organizational outcomes. So let's take a look at this question. In the Mary Kay Cosmetics Company, the best salespeople receive pink Cadillacs in special award ceremonies. This is an example of, if you said D, both symbol and a rite or ritual, you are right. A symbol is an object, and in this case, the pink Cadillac, and rites and rituals are the activities and ceremonies that could be planned or unplanned that celebrate important occasions and accomplishments in the organization's life. Changing organizational culture is essentially a teaching process. That is, a process in which members instruct each other about the organization's preferred values, beliefs, expectations. The process is accomplished by using one or more of the following 12 mechanisms that are listed and explained on page 293 and 294 in your textbook. So take a look at those 12 and understand that this is a process and mechanism used in cultural change. As discussed in Chapter 1, there are 3 types of organizations. So as a recap, they are for-profit organizations, which form to make money or profit by offering a product or service. We have nonprofit organizations, which are formed to offer services to clients. They're not to make a profit, or hospitals and colleges. And then we have mutual benefit organizations. They're voluntary collectives whose purpose is to advance members' interests, your unions, your trade associations. Once the organization's visions and strategies have been determined, top managers need to create a culture within the organization that will motivate its employees, as well as create a structure that will coordinate their actions to achieve the organization's goals. This is where we begin to discuss organization's structure. But first, let's take a look at this question number 2. The United Way, a charitable organization, is considered blank organization. If you said nonprofit, you are correct. The nonprofit would mean that an organization does not make a profit, and United Way is an example of a nonprofit organization. So an organization chart is a box and lines, is a box and lines and illustration here showing the formal lines of authority and the organization's official positions or work specializations. 2 kinds of information that organization charts reveal about organizational structures are vertical hierarchy of authority, who reports to whom, and horizontal specialization, who specializes in what. Every organization has some form of organizational chart. So at your place of work, take a look at it and see what it is. Whether for profit, nonprofit, or mutual benefit, organizations have a number of common elements. The textbook discusses 4 proposed by a psychologist, Edward Schein, and then 3 others that most authorities agree on. The four proposed by Edgar Schein are, number one, common purpose. So these are the common elements. Organizations have a common purpose. It gives everyone an understanding of the organization's reason for being. Without a common purpose, employees begin to drift and disorganization emerges. He says that organizations have coordinated effort. The coordination of individual effort into group-wide effort, working toward that common purpose. We alone cannot get the job done, but with a group effort, it can be done. There's division of labor, having discrete parts of a task done by different people. This division of labor, also known as work specialization, helps an organization divide labor based on the specialties employees have to get the job done and to work more efficiently. And finally, Schein finds that the hierarchy of authority, or the chain of command, there has to be one, or there is one, and that's a common element of organizations, whether it's profit, nonprofit, or mutual benefit. This hierarchy of authority or chain of command is to make sure the right people do the right things at the right time. So there is a unity of command. Along with these that were proposed by Edward Schein, three others have been added as common elements of an organization. They are: 1. Span of control. The number of people reporting directly to a given manager, narrow or wide. Within this, there are two kinds of span of control. The first is narrow span of control, and this means a manager has a limited number of people reporting. The other is wide span of control, meaning that a manager has several persons reporting. The second element is authority. With authority goes accountability, responsibility, and delegation of one's authority. This is line versus staff positions. And finally, we have centralized versus decentralized authority. Who makes decisions? Upper management or middle? In a centralized authority, the decisions are made by higher level managers, whereas in a decentralized authority, the important decisions are made by mid-level and supervisory level managers. An advantage to this is that managers are encouraged to solve their own problems rather than going to higher authority and waiting for a resolution. So there are 8 types of organizational structures: simple, functional, divisional, matrix, horizontal, hollow, module, and virtual. And we will briefly identify each of these. The first design that we will talk about is classified under traditional designs. And under traditional designs, it is included simple, functional, divisional, and matrix. This traditional organizational design favor structures that rely on vertical management hierarchy with clear departmental boundaries and reporting. So let's take a look at simple structure. So hundreds and thousands of organizations are arranged according to a simple structure. For instance, small mom and pop store firms running landscaping, construction, insurance, sales, or similar businesses. Examples may include Hewlett Packard and Apple Computers. They began as a two-man garage startup that later grew. So an authority is the centralized person, a single person with few rules and low specializations. Your authority in a simple structure here is your owner. And small firms all over the country are organized this way. We have an owner and administrative assistant. Their employee answers to the owner. So they're like typically your small mom and pop stores. The second organizational form is the functional structure. In a functional structure, people with similar occupational specialties are put together in formal groups. This is a quite commonplace structure seen in all kinds of organizations, for profit and nonprofit. So we have here in a structure for business, a president and those people under him. So functional, each one of functional marketing, finance, production, and human resource. So what are their specialties? And they're arranged in that structure. The third organizational form is the divisional structure, in which people with diverse occupational specialties are put together in formal groups by similar products, customers, or geographic regions. So product divisions are group activities around similar products or services. So for example, the media giant Time Warner has different divisions for magazines, movies, recordings, cable, and so on. So the Warner Brothers part of the empire alone has divisions spanning movies, television, and all of that, theater, amusement parks, and music. We have customer divisions, which tend to group activities around common customers or clients. So, example could be a Ford Motor Company has separate divisions for passenger cars, for large trucking, or for farm products customers. A savings and loans might be structured for divisions for making consumer loans, mortgage loans, business loans, and agricultural loans. And finally, we have geographic divisions where we group activities around defined regional locations. So an example of this would be an arrangement in that is usually typically used by government agencies. So the Federal Reserve Bank, for instance, has 12 separate districts around the United States, and whereas the same thing with the IRS, they have several differences, and that's how they are divided and separated in their organizational structure. In a matrix structure, an organization combines functional and divisional chains of command in a grid so that there are two common command structures, vertical and horizontal. The functional structure usually doesn't change. These are the organization's normal departments of divisions such as finance, marketing, production, and research and development. The divisional structure may vary as by product, brand, customer, or geographic region. The first organizational design that was a functional structure, and that included the last three structures that we just saw. The second organizational design is the horizontal design. In this, also called the team-based design, teams or work groups, they can be either temporary or permanent, and it is used to improve collaboration and work on shared tasks by breaking down internal boundaries. So for instance, when managers from different functional divisions are brought together in teams known as cross-functional teams, they to solve a particular problem, the barriers between the divisions break down. The focus on narrow divisional interests yields to a common interest in solving the problem that brought them together. Yet, team members still have their full-time functional work responsibilities and often still formally report to managers above them in the functional division hierarchy. The opposite of a bureaucracy with its numerous barriers and divisions, a boundaryless organization is a fluid, highly adaptive organization whose members are linked by information technology, and they come together to collaborate on common tasks. The collaborators may include not only workers, but suppliers, customers, and even competitors. This means that the form of the business is ever-changing and business relationships are informal. So in the hollow structure, often called the network structure, the organization has a central core of key functions and outsources other functions to vendors who can do them cheaper or faster. A company with a hollow structure might retain such important core processes as design and marketing and outsource most other processes such as human resources, warehousing, or distribution, thereby seeming to hollow out the organization. The modular structure differs from the hollow structure in that it is oriented around outsourcing certain pieces of a product rather than outsourcing certain processes such as human resources or warehousing of an organization. In the modular structure, a firm assembles product chunks or modules provided by outside contractors. One article compares this form of our organization to a collection of Lego bricks that can snap together. We have a basic type is your virtual structure, where an organization whose members are geographically separated, usually working through email and other forms of information technology, yet which generally appear to customers as a single unified organization with a real physical location. An example is your web service company Automatic, which is out of San Francisco, but Its real offices are homes of its 123 employees working in 26 countries, 94 cities, and 28 states. So although occasionally employees hop on a plane and meet face to face, they mainly transmit their messages via text-based internal blogs, or when misunderstandings occur, talk on the phone. With this virtual structure, companies can tap into a wider talent not limited by geography. So firms can also save money on real estate through sizable travel budgets. All those, these travel budgets and meeting face to face can offset that. So let's take a look at this question. XYZ Hospital has a chief of medical services, a director of administrative services, and a director of outpatient services. XYZ has a blank structure. If you answered A, functional, you are correct. Remember, in a functional structure, people with similar occupational specialties are put together to form in formal groups. This next section, we will discuss how companies can be more effective in their structure. What can more effectively structure themselves by using the concept of contingency organization design. When managers are considering what organizational arrangements to choose from, such factors as stage of development are among the factors or contingencies that they must consider. Contingency design is the process of fitting the organization to its environment. And three factors to consider are: 1, environment, mechanistic versus organic; 2, the environment again, differentiation versus integration; and 3, the link between strategy, culture, and structure. The three factors are described here on this slide. So this it's in table 8.2 that you can find in your textbook. So in a mechanistic organization, authority is centralized. Tasks and rules are clearly specified, and employees are closely supervised. Mechanistic organizations then are bureaucratic with rigid rules and top-down communication. This kind of structure is effective in certain aspects of hotel work, for example, because the market demands uniform product quality and cleanliness. In general, mechanistic design works best when an organization is operating in a stable environment. Yet, new companies that have gone through a rough and tumble startup period may decide to change their structure so they are more mechanistic with clear lines of authority. In an organic organization, authority is decentralized. There are fewer rules and procedures, and networks of employees are encouraged to cooperate and respond quickly to unexpected tasks. Tom Peters and Robert Waterman called this kind of organization a loose structure. Organic organizations are sometimes termed adhocracies because they operate on an ad hoc basis, improvising as they go along. As you might expect, information technology companies favor the organic arrangement because they constantly have to adjust to technological change. Proposed by Lawrence and Lorsch, the differentiation integration dimension are forces that impelled the parts of an organization to move apart or to come together. How stable the environment confronting various parts of the organization determines the degree of differentiation or integration that is needed. In differentiation, or when forces push the organization apart, this impulse toward dispersal arises because of technological specialization and division of labor. As a result, specialists behave in specific delimited ways without coordinating with other parts of the organization. For example, a company producing dental floss, deodorants, and other personal care products might have different product divisions, each with its own production facility and sales staff, a quite differentiated organization. In integration, or when forces pull the organization together, this highly integrated organization, the specialists work together to achieve a common goal. This means for achieving this, there needs to be a formal chain of command, standardization of rules and procedures, and a use of cross-functional teams and computer networks so that there is frequent communication and coordination of the parts. The final factor considered in designing an organization and structure is the link between strategy, culture, and structure. All the organizational cultures and structures described in this chapter are used today because all of them have advantages that make them appropriate for some cases and disadvantages that make them not so useful for others. For example, the clear roles and strict hierarchy of an extremely mechanistic organization are clearly suitable in a system valuing careful routine and checks and balances, such as a nuclear power plant. A fast-moving startup drawing on resources of expertise throughout the world may benefit from a more flexible culture and organic structure that lower boundaries between functions and organizations. Aligning strategy, culture, and structure, three things. Organizational structure and organizational culture should be aligned with its visions and strategies. If managers change the strategy of an organization, they need to change the culture with it and structure to support it. And similarly, as companies grow, the culture and structure need to grow with it. This concludes Chapter 8.